A sound moved through the darkness. Not footsteps, not breathing, not the shuffle of fabric or the tapping of nails. It was the soft, deliberate turning of a page, though no hand had yet reached it. The library was awake, or perhaps it had never truly slept. Lanterns floated high above, their golden glow drifting like pollen through the vaulted halls, brushing stone arches carved with sigils older than memory itself. Shadows clung to the corners, hesitant and patient, stretching long to embrace every surface, but never fully claiming it. Shelves spiraled, both inward and outward, defying distance, as if the geometry of this place obeyed an older, quieter logic. Books rested in careful disorder. Some pulsed with life, their spines quivering as though breathing. Others lay still, closed with the solemnity of deep slumber. Every volume had a weight, not of paper and ink alone, but of choices and possibilities, of roads not taken and whispered promises, of consequences yet unspoken. The keeper walked among them. Her name, long whispered to her by mentors and ancestors, felt lighter than the robe on her shoulders. She moved slowly, deliberately, as if time itself had granted her this passage. The library noticed speed. It always had. Air shifted gently around her. Inks warmed and paper stretched in response. Pages sighed, faint as distant wind. She had crossed the outer halls countless times during her apprenticeship, learning the subtle arts of listening without touching, of seeing without reading. Yet tonight the corridors leaned toward her path, bending softly as if the walls themselves had been waiting, remembering her coming. Somewhere deep within, a book exhaled. Not a sound, but a motion, subtle, almost invisible. The keeper paused, alert but unafraid. She had been taught. Books do not call. They respond. But the silence before her felt like a question, shaped carefully, intentionally, hollowed for her presence alone. Lantern light pooled at the edge of a long aisle where no lanterns hung. It did not flicker. It breathed. It waited. There, among bindings marked with sigils of restraint, rested a volume without a title. Its cover shimmered faintly in the golden glow. No dust clung to it. No lock barred its secrets. Its pages moved subtly, as though aligning themselves to something newly arrived. The keeper did not reach for it immediately. She remembered the rule whispered during her final initiation. Some books are unfinished because they are still listening. Some await a choice not yet understood. Her breath slowed. Her fingers itched with curiosity, yet she resisted. Around her, the library seemed to lean closer. Light pooled around the book like water, curling at the edges, folding into itself, and the keeper felt a subtle warmth brush her cheeks. She stepped closer, her robe whispering against stone. The air shifted again. She could hear the hum of the floor beneath her, the quiet resonance of ink soaking into parchment, the barely there vibrations of possibility in the distance. Each heartbeat echoed through the hall like a drum in a vast cathedral, marking the rhythm of anticipation. Slowly, deliberately, the keeper knelt. She rested her hands just above the book. It responded instantly, a flutter of pages like a nervous pulse. Images swam behind her eyelids. A market square she had never visited, a candlelit tower room, footsteps on a bridge over a silver river. The visions passed, delicate and dreamlike, teasing more than revealing. A soft wind whispered along the shelves. The keeper's heartbeat slowed. The library breathed with her. Each lantern shimmered as if nodding in agreement. This was the first lesson. Presence was everything. Influence was secondary. Hours could have passed. Minutes. Seconds. In this place, the keeper could not tell. Time was a suggestion, a ripple, a gentle tide. Finally, she opened the book. Not a grand gesture, not hurried. Only a finger traced the edge of the first page. The paper trembled beneath her touch. Words emerged like morning fog, ink glowing faintly. Unfinished sentences, half-formed names, choices that hung like stars awaiting a constellation. Her eyes scanned the lines, not reading aloud, but absorbing rhythm, energy, life. She understood that to move, to alter, to decide, was to carry a weight greater than any she had known. A single stroke could alter countless hearts, countless streets, countless lives yet unborn. And for the first time, since her initiation had begun, the keeper realized she was not merely walking through a library. She was walking through possibility itself. The keeper lingered in the quiet embrace of the aisle. Around her, the shelves whispered softly, pages fluttering like wings of unseen birds. A faint warmth emanated from the volume beneath her fingertips. Not heat, but presence, a subtle pulse, as if the book were alive and breathing alongside her. She closed her eyes, inhaling slowly. Ink, paper, and the faint scent of distant forests mingled in the air. She remembered the library's warning. Change was a ripple. Even a small one could cascade beyond measure. Her hand hovered above the pages. Images returned, more vivid this time. A child reaching for a candle, a stranger offering a loaf of bread, a garden where blossoms bent toward some hidden sun. They flickered like fireflies, each possibility delicate, ephemeral. She could almost hear the laughter of the lives contained within, soft, like wind through leaves. The keeper opened the next page. The ink shimmered differently, responding not to her eyes, but to her intent. Lines formed shapes that might have been doors, or windows, or bridges. Each word suggested a path, yet each path remained suspended, waiting for acknowledgement, waiting for movement. Her heart slowed further, thoughts untangled in the stillness. She felt the weight of patience, of knowing that presence alone mattered before action. The library had taught her that listening was the truest form of care. Touching too soon, deciding too fast, could unravel what had not yet been woven. A soft sound brushed her ear, not a voice, but a sigh of air, as if the corridors themselves exhaled. Lanterns swayed slightly, though no wind moved. Shadows stretched, revealing shapes that were never solid. She could not tell whether they were reflections of light or of choice, of consequence or desire. Pages moved again beneath her hands, slowly this time, curling inward, then outward, like water disturbed by a gentle stone. The keeper understood that she was not merely reading. She was entering a place of patience, of suspended time, where each heartbeat was amplified into a quiet reverence. She remembered the faces of the keepers who had guided her. Their eyes held depth, not knowledge alone, but humility. They had spoken of mistakes with reverence, of errors as teachers, of hesitation as wisdom. She understood now. The library did not punish curiosity. It demanded attentiveness. A single sentence shimmered before her. Not all paths are meant to end in completion. Some are meant to unfold slowly. Her mind traced the line again and again, feeling the subtle echo of its truth. Possibility, she realized, was a living river. To step into it was not to control it, but to move with it, to respect its flow. Her fingers finally brushed the edge of the page. It trembled, but did not resist. She imagined the lives contained within as threads of silver and shadow, some bright and direct, others looping in quiet spirals, some hidden entirely. She understood the library's patience. It waited for the keeper to meet the threads halfway. A distant bell chimed, though no bell hung anywhere visible. It marked not the hour, but awareness. She breathed with it. The library moved with it. Every shelf, every book, every glowing symbol seemed to acknowledge her presence without judgment. The keeper leaned forward, studying the half-formed words. She imagined them as seeds, small and fragile, waiting for light and care to grow. She imagined tending them, but not forcing them. The lesson was quiet, influence without intrusion, guidance without compulsion. She heard the softest creak behind her. The floorboard, perhaps, or something older. She did not turn. She felt instead a subtle shift, as if the library itself had stepped closer. The air thickened with ink and warmth, with the silent promise of discovery. The keeper settled onto the cold stone floor, legs folded beneath her, hands resting lightly on the pages. She did not speak, did not move beyond breathing. Time expanded around her, and she felt herself align with it. Lanterns glowed. Shadows waited. Pages fluttered. The library exhaled. And the keeper, for the first time, felt not curiosity, but connection, a deep, patient understanding that the library and she were engaged in a silent dialogue, one that required neither words nor haste, only presence. She closed her eyes, letting the images swim freely. A child, a market, a garden, a bridge over silver water. Choices that shimmered in delicate arcs, waiting for acknowledgement. She let them breathe, letting possibility itself settle gently around her shoulders. And somewhere deep within, the book pulsed. Not urgent, not demanding, simply waiting. And she waited with it. The keeper remained on the floor, her eyes closed, listening to the library's subtle movements. Every creak, every whisper of parchment, every flicker of lantern light was a language she had begun to understand. Not words, not commands, but intentions. Currents of possibility flowed around her, brushing against her senses. A single line on the page shimmered, faintly glowing. She traced it with the tip of her finger. The letters seemed to ripple under her touch, as if acknowledging her presence. Images danced in the periphery of her mind. Rooftops glimmering with dew, a child pausing at a crossroads, a lone lantern swaying on a distant balcony. Each image held a soft hum, a resonance of choice, a promise of potential. The keeper exhaled slowly. She felt the rhythm of the library align with her heartbeat, the pulse of its knowledge flowing through the silence. The aisles around her curved gently, shifting imperceptibly, guiding her attention to the margins of the book where ink had not yet dried. Blank spaces waited, patient, expectant, as though inviting her to wonder, to imagine, to consider. She leaned forward, brushing the page once more. A tiny ripple moved across the surface of the paper, and in that ripple, she glimpsed possibilities branching like threads of silver light, some twisting toward brightness, others curling into shadow. She understood then that each choice, each attention, even each hesitation, could alter these paths in ways unseen. Lanterns shimmered higher above, their glow pooling around arches and staircases, casting gentle reflections onto the pages below. Shadows gathered, soft, non-threatening, almost protective. Somewhere, deep in the library, a faint hum rose, a vibration of knowledge awakening. She felt it as a pulse through her spine, a reminder that this place was alive, more alive than anything else she had known. Her thoughts drifted gently, untangling knots she had not noticed. She remembered the warnings of her mentors. Some threads are not yours to guide. Some pages are not yours to touch. Listen first, move second. She opened another page, letting her eyes follow the lines without pressing meaning upon them. Words shifted subtly, forming shapes she could sense more than see. A bridge unbuilt, a garden unplanted, footsteps not yet taken. The book breathed around her fingers, expanding, contracting, a living rhythm of possibility. Minutes, hours, perhaps longer, time had lost its shape. The keeper felt herself merge into the quiet cadence of the library, each breath a dialogue, each heartbeat a silent vow. Possibility was not something to grasp, she realized, but to inhabit, to be patient, attentive, gentle. A soft wind stirred, not through corridors, not through doors, but from the very air between pages. The keeper smiled faintly. It was an acknowledgement, an invitation. The library was speaking, in a voice felt rather than heard, asking only that she remain present. She rested her forehead lightly against the open page. The book shivered, responding, not with urgency, not with demand, but with a quiet patience, the patience of someone who knows that every choice matters, yet every moment can wait. She imagined the lives contained within, a child pausing at a bridge, a lantern swinging softly over cobblestones, petals turning toward a hidden sun. None were her own, and yet they felt intimately, achingly close. She felt herself part of a larger rhythm, one that included shadow and light, hesitation and movement, beginning and pause. Lanterns shimmered. Shadows waited. Pages fluttered. The library exhaled again, slow, deliberate. And the keeper, for the first time fully, understood. She was not a visitor. She was a participant, not a master, but a companion to the threads of destiny. She closed the book gently, letting the pages settle. The glow faded slightly, and yet a warmth lingered in the air, soft as a sigh. The keeper rose, slowly, feeling the stone beneath her feet, the arches above, the gentle hum of possibilities stretching in every direction. For a moment, the library and the keeper breathed as one. Possibility and patience entwined. The world beyond the walls remained unseen, yet somehow near. She had crossed the threshold of listening. Now, she would learn the threshold of choice. The lanterns flickered. Shadows stretched. Pages waited. And she moved deeper into the aisle, towards secrets that had never been read, towards stories that had never been lived, toward a quiet understanding that would guide her in ways she could not yet imagine. The keeper walked slowly down the winding aisle, her fingertips brushing the edges of countless volumes. Each book hummed faintly, a pulse almost imperceptible, yet unmistakable to someone who had learned to listen. Lanterns above swayed lightly, though no breeze moved. Shadows stretched along the walls, curling around arches and columns as if examining her passage. Some shadows flickered, forming shapes that might have been doors or windows or arches that had never existed before. The library had begun to shift, imperceptibly, yet with intention. She paused at a shelf that had not been there yesterday, or so her memory suggested. It was low, carved from dark wood, and etched with symbols she had never seen. The books it held were narrow, tall, and uneven, their spines alive with color that shimmered faintly. Each one seemed to breathe softly, waiting. A single page floated free, suspended in midair. She did not startle. She only observed, noticing the delicate curl at the edges, the faint vibration of possibility that radiated from it. The library had never offered such a gesture to a keeper before her. She reached out. The moment her fingers brushed the page, images filled her mind. A village square under soft moonlight, a lantern swinging gently in the wind, a figure pausing on a bridge over silver water, petals of a garden bending toward an unseen sun. The images shimmered, delicate as fog, and then receded, leaving only a faint echo. Her heartbeat slowed. She understood. The library was inviting her to witness, not to act. Yet even witnessing was a form of participation. She inhaled, feeling the gentle pull of unseen currents around her. Pages fluttered softly, like a heartbeat. Somewhere, deeper in the library, a bell chimed. Not loud, not commanding. A subtle sound, a vibration that traveled through the stone floors and high arches. It marked awareness, not time. She paused to listen, letting the sound fill her, letting it ripple through the aisles like water through a riverbed. The keeper's fingers traced the edges of the floating page. Words formed slowly, faint at first, then more distinct. Paths may converge, yet none are equal. Every choice shifts the whole, unseen. She smiled faintly. She understood the lesson. The library did not demand immediate action. It demanded observation, patience, presence. Lanterns above flickered in response to the subtle rhythm of her breathing. Shadows waited, coiled, attentive. Books shifted slightly on their shelves, the spines leaning toward her as if acknowledging her understanding. The air itself seemed alive, pulsing with quiet potential. A faint scent reached her, old paper, ink, and the distant aroma of forests and rain. It was unfamiliar, yet oddly comforting. She inhaled slowly, letting the scent fill her senses. She could feel the library adjusting around her, subtle changes she could not yet name, guiding her attention toward possibilities she had not noticed before. Her gaze fell upon a corner where light pooled unusually. There, a cluster of books leaned outward, forming a subtle arch. She approached, feeling the hum of energy increase. The pages of the books fluttered gently, as though eager to be noticed. She knelt, letting her hands hover over the spines. Each book was unfinished, each story waiting. The images inside flickered like firelight, a child reaching for a candle, a shadow pausing at the edge of a roof, a bridge suspended over silver water. Every flicker felt alive, like a whisper of the lives yet to unfold. The keeper's thoughts slowed. She focused only on presence, on listening, not on choice, not on action. The library had taught her that patience was the truest form of understanding. Influence would come, but only when aligned with the rhythm of possibility. Pages shifted beneath her hands, gentle and deliberate. Light from the lanterns curved around her, pooling like water. She could feel a connection forming, subtle and profound, a dialogue without words. The library and she moved in quiet synchrony. She exhaled slowly, feeling the weight and the grace of responsibility. The hum of the books settled, as if acknowledging her attentiveness. Somewhere in the shadows, a corridor leaned closer. Not threatening, not sudden, only curious, awaiting the next moment of gentle awareness. The keeper closed her eyes, letting the images drift freely. She was not seeking control, not searching for answers. She was becoming part of the library's rhythm, a quiet witness to the unfolding potential of countless stories. And in that moment, she understood fully. The library was alive not merely in pages or ink, but in the act of noticing, of presence, of patient attention. Lanterns shimmered. Shadows waited. Pages fluttered. The keeper moved deeper, toward corridors and books that had never existed before, toward possibilities that had never been named. The library breathed around her. She breathed with it. And together, they listened. The corridor narrowed unexpectedly, not in shape, but in feeling. The air grew heavier, dense with unspoken expectation. The keeper slowed her pace. Every step seemed to echo, yet the echo returned softened, almost tender. Lanterns glimmered faintly, their glow reflecting in pages that had been still moments before. Shadows quivered along the edges of shelves, as if aware that she had noticed them. Somewhere, distant, the faint hum of possibility had grown louder, resonating in the stone, in the pages, in her chest. A cluster of books tilted toward her as she passed, and one fell gently to the floor. No sound, only movement. She knelt immediately, careful not to disturb the surrounding order. The book opened on its own, revealing words that seemed to shape themselves from the air. Every choice is an echo. Every pause, a step. Some paths closed softly, some opened silently. Images arose behind her eyelids. A child watching a candle flame. A street empty yet full of whispers. A silver river that curved like a thought. She did not try to hold them. She let them float past, letting her breath match their rhythm. The keeper's fingers hovered above the page. She felt the subtle vibration, the sense that the story itself was aware of her presence. It responded, curling lightly around her intent, yet careful not to push, not to demand. A lesson in patience, again, but deeper this time. Light shifted across the arches, pooling in places where lanterns had never hung. The air tasted faintly of ink and rain, of forests seen only in dreams. She inhaled slowly, allowing the scent to anchor her. The library had always been alive, but now it felt aware of her differently, almost sentient in a subtle, pulsing way. She traced the edge of another page, and this time a soft ripple ran across the floor. Not a sound, only the sensation of movement, like water brushing stone. Her mind drifted, imagining possibilities. A garden that bent toward a hidden sun, rooftops glistening in morning dew, footsteps that paused at thresholds, hesitant. A quiet resonance rose, not threatening, but insistent. She sensed that threads of different stories were brushing against each other here, intersecting in subtle ways. Something in the library was shifting, small, careful, almost imperceptible, yet present. She sat cross-legged, letting the hum fill her. No rush, no decision, only awareness. The pages moved under her hands, as if breathing, their energy quiet but undeniable. Lanterns flickered again, and she noticed how shadows seemed to bend, not away, but toward her, guiding attention gently. Her thoughts wandered to the keeper's oath, to preserve, to observe, to intervene only when necessary. She realized that the library was testing her, not with commands, but with presence, with the subtle art of waiting. She inhaled deeply, matching her pulse to the rhythm of possibility around her. The floating pages began to shimmer faintly, reflecting the faint golden glow in ways that made words appear almost alive. Some were sentences unfinished, others names unformed, some with choices dangling like threads into darkness. She understood that some stories here were intertwined, each echoing into the others, delicate and fragile. Her gaze lingered on a sequence of pages that formed a corridor of possibility. She did not read each word individually, but felt them as a tide, a flow of potential. She understood that the library's lesson was not merely to watch, but to synchronize, to move slowly enough to perceive the connections that were not written. Somewhere beyond the shelves, a faint door closed. Not abruptly, but softly, as if marking an end and a beginning simultaneously. She smiled faintly, realizing that she, too, was learning to fold into the library's rhythm. Lanterns glimmered. Shadows waited. Pages breathed. The keeper remained still, aware, attentive, and ready. For in this quiet, meditative communion, she began to sense the first threads of choice converging, and the softest hint that not all paths would remain untouched. The keeper stepped into a wider hall, where lanterns hung in gentle arcs over rows of books she had never seen before. The air was thicker here, not with dust, but with expectation, subtle and unspoken. Pages trembled lightly on their spines, as if sensing her approach, yet they made no sound. She moved slowly, inhaling the soft scent of old parchment and faintly of wet earth. Something remembered, something imagined. The library was aware of her presence. She felt it in the slow pulsing of the aisles, in the way shadows leaned just slightly, and in the warmth that brushed her cheeks. Her fingers hovered above a particularly narrow volume, etched with faint symbols. The book shifted slightly under her attention, tilting as if offering itself to her. She did not reach immediately. Awareness, she reminded herself. Presence first, action later. The page fluttered gently, revealing half-formed sentences. Words shimmered faintly in the lantern light, tracing themselves like gentle ripples over still water. Some choices linger longer than others. Some echoes travel further than sight can follow. Watch. Listen. Wait. She exhaled, letting the words settle in her mind. Images appeared behind her eyelids. A lantern swinging in a silent square, rooftops glistening with dew, a single child pausing at a crossroads. Each image was alive, delicate, suspended, not yet acted upon, but waiting. The keeper knelt beside the book, letting her fingers hover lightly above the paper. The library seemed to pulse beneath her hands, a subtle rhythm she had not noticed before. It was the first hint that something within these halls was shifting, not violently, but gently, like a river altering its course over centuries. Her thoughts wandered, unbidden. Could a single change ripple too far? Could attention itself alter the balance of possibility? She had been taught patience, yet now patience seemed to carry its own weight. a quiet responsibility heavier than stone. Lanterns swayed softly, shadows bending in response. Pages moved slightly, curling and uncurling, as though breathing. The keeper's heart slowed further, and she exhaled a long, steady breath. She was learning to become part of this rhythm, to feel the silent dialogue without speaking. A corridor beyond the shelves shimmered in soft golden light. She glanced toward it, sensing faint movement, subtle, intentional, yet not threatening. Some paths were changing here, subtly, almost invisibly. The keeper's awareness sharpened, not in alarm, but in quiet curiosity. She ran a fingertip along the edge of the page. The letters shifted imperceptibly beneath her touch, as if acknowledging her presence. The images returned, a bridge over silver water, a garden bending toward hidden sun, a figure pausing in the shadows. All waiting, all suspended, all alive. The keeper felt a soft tremor beneath her feet, the library's heartbeat, steady and eternal. Every page she observed seemed to hum faintly, each story aware of her attention. She understood that influence and observation were entwined. Presence alone carried consequence. She leaned back slightly, absorbing the scene. The hall seemed to stretch, expanding imperceptibly in every direction. Lanterns gleamed. Shadows waited. Pages breathed. Possibility hung in the air, delicate, patient, and alive. A single whisper of wind brushed past her ears, though no door or window was near. She smiled faintly, realizing that even in this quiet, she was learning the subtle art of discernment, which threads to observe, which to respect, which to let remain untouched. The keeper rose, letting her hands rest gently at her sides. She felt a shift within herself, a quiet acknowledgement that the library's lessons were deeper than any book, any word, any instruction. They existed in attention, in stillness, in reverence. Lanterns shimmered. Shadows waited. Pages fluttered. And the keeper stepped forward, deeper into the hall, carrying with her the soft weight of awareness, patience, and quiet responsibility, ready to meet the unfolding paths that awaited in the library's endless corridors. A thin shaft of light slanted through an unseen opening, illuminating a corner of the library she had never noticed. Dust motes shimmered, suspended like tiny lanterns in the glow. The keeper paused, sensing a subtle tension in the air, something shifting, delicate but undeniable. She moved toward it slowly, feet silent on the cold stone. Each step seemed to echo faintly, but the echo returned softened, almost approving. The shelves here were older, carved with sigils worn smooth by centuries of touch. Pages trembled faintly as she passed, like wings catching a breeze. A book jutted slightly from the shelf, its spine cracked in places, but still glowing faintly. She had not placed it there, yet it seemed to lean toward her, inviting recognition. As her hand hovered over the cover, a faint pulse traveled up her arm, a heartbeat not her own, but felt as if shared. She inhaled slowly, letting the quiet hum of the library fill her. The scent was different here. Aged parchment, rain-soaked wood, and something like the faint sweetness of blossoms in an unseen garden. Awareness tightened around her senses, sharpening without urgency. The book opened with a gentle sigh. Its pages shimmered with faint, incomplete words. Images bloomed in her mind. A candle flickering in a silent room, a market street empty of people, yet vibrating with unspoken possibility, a bridge suspended over silver water. Each image lingered, delicate, half-formed, waiting for attention. Her fingers traced the edge of the page, feeling the slight warmth, the subtle resistance. The words seemed to shift, almost imperceptibly, as though aware of her focus. Choice is a river, the ink whispered silently, and every ripple touches shores unseen. A soft vibration moved through the floor. She noticed the aisles had subtly shifted, the shelves bending gently inward, corridors narrowing then expanding again. The library was alive in ways she had not perceived before, aware not only of presence, but of intent. Her thoughts drifted to the lesson her mentor had whispered. Not every unfinished story waits for guidance. Some wait for understanding. She exhaled, letting the words settle. Observation alone was becoming a form of care, patience itself a gentle act of influence. Images shimmered again. A child hesitating at a doorway, petals turning toward a hidden sun, footsteps paused over cobblestones glinting with dew. She felt the weight of each suspended moment, the quiet gravity of potential. A lantern flickered overhead, drawing shadows into arcs she had never noticed before. She tilted her head, sensing the subtle motion of pages across the shelves. They moved not randomly, but with intention, a slow dance of possibility. Her fingers hovered above another page. It responded immediately, curling lightly, as if acknowledging a silent question she had not yet asked. She felt the first flicker of doubt. What if attention alone could alter the path? What if even the smallest choice carried consequence far beyond perception? The keeper's heartbeat slowed as she let the library envelop her. Patience, she reminded herself. Listening before acting. The words on the page shimmered once more. Even the quietest touch may shape eternity. She closed her eyes, allowing herself to feel the library's pulse, the rhythm of infinite threads intersecting around her. Lanterns glimmered, shadows waited, pages fluttered. The gentle hum of possibility resonated through the stone, through her, through the unseen corridors stretching endlessly. Rising, she moved deeper into the hall, a quiet tension folding into anticipation. Not urgency, not fear, only awareness. And she knew that soon, some choices would demand her attention more than observation alone could provide. A soft murmur drifted from the farthest shelves, a sound neither wind nor whisper, but something between thought and breath. The keeper tilted her head, sensing its subtle rhythm. It was not threatening, yet it carried weight, a quiet insistence that drew her attention deeper into the library. Her fingers traced the spines as she moved, each touch a gentle acknowledgement. The books responded in kind, vibrating faintly, pages fluttering as though sighing with recognition. Some leaned toward her more than others, offering glimpses of stories half-formed, threads dangling just beyond her understanding. A narrow aisle appeared where none had been before. She hesitated, feeling the pull of unseen currents. There, on a pedestal low enough to require kneeling, lay a book she had not noticed before. Its cover was unmarked, yet it shimmered faintly with a light she could feel rather than see. Kneeling, she reached out. The moment her fingers touched the surface, the library seemed to inhale, and the book responded, pages opening as if waiting for her gaze. Images bloomed in her mind, a lantern swinging over a silent square, rooftops glistening with dew, a bridge stretching over silver water. Each scene was alive, delicate, suspended in a quiet tension. The keeper exhaled slowly. Observation alone felt heavier now. Awareness carried responsibility. Even the smallest acknowledgement of these possibilities might shift them, like a leaf nudged into a current. A sentence formed before her eyes. Some threads are fragile. Some wait for courage. Some demand patience. Her breath caught slightly. The weight of choice pressed softly against her chest. Could she intervene? Should she? The library had always taught restraint. Yet here, the call of subtle guidance seemed almost tangible. Lanterns flickered above, casting shadows that bent and arched along the aisles. She noticed movements in the corners of her vision, pages turning themselves, spines leaning, shadows stretching. Nothing forced. Everything gentle, deliberate, alive. Her mind wandered through the images, a child hesitating at a threshold, petals bending toward a hidden sun, footsteps paused over cobblestones. Each moment seemed more vulnerable, more delicate than before. She realized that her presence alone had become part of the unfolding, a subtle ripple through countless possibilities. A faint vibration underfoot reminded her of the library's pulse. Every heartbeat of stone and paper resonated with her own. Patience, she reminded herself, but awareness was now an active act. To observe was also to touch, in ways unseen. She leaned closer to the page, letting her fingertips hover without pressing. The letters shifted softly, curling in response to her intent. A whisper of doubt entered her mind. What if some paths required more than observation? What if waiting was no longer enough? Lanterns glimmered. Shadows leaned. Pages fluttered, delicate and alive. The keeper breathed with the rhythm, letting the library guide her through tension without hurry, through awareness without judgment. She traced a thread of possibility with her mind, a small change here, a gentle intervention there. Each flicker of thought resonated across the stories, yet the balance remained. Not perfect, not complete, but moving. And in the quiet of the hall, she realized the subtle truth. Presence was not passive. Even hesitation had consequence. Even observation carried weight. Rising, she folded her hands lightly over the open page, feeling the hum of energy beneath her fingers. Lanterns shimmered. Shadows waited. Pages breathed. And the keeper stepped forward into the next aisle, aware that choices were coming, and that patience alone might not be enough. A faint shimmer traced the edges of the aisle, as though the air itself were bending slightly, guiding her steps. The keeper noticed it immediately, a subtle deviation in the familiar path of the library, something shifting with quiet insistence. Not threatening, not urgent, but deliberate. The shelves leaned just a fraction inward, almost imperceptibly. Pages rustled without wind, and lantern light caught the corners of books that had never glimmered before. Somewhere, a book trembled lightly, as if it sensed the weight of anticipation in the air. She moved slowly, feeling the pulse of the library beneath her feet, the gentle vibration of possibility threading through stone and ink alike. Her fingers brushed the spines as she passed, each touch sending faint ripples along the pages. She sensed stories stirring, half-formed, delicate, waiting for attention. In the center of the aisle, a pedestal had appeared overnight, carved from dark wood and etched with sigils faintly glowing. Upon it lay a single book, its cover smooth and unmarked, yet it radiated warmth. She knelt, sensing that this book was unlike any she had encountered before. The pages opened under her touch, revealing sequences of possibilities intertwined. Images filled her mind, rooftops glistening under morning dew, a bridge swaying gently over silver water, a lantern flickering in a square deserted but vibrating with unseen life. Every image resonated with faint energy, suspended delicately in a quiet tension. She traced the edges of the pages, feeling subtle warmth under her fingertips. Words shimmered faintly in the lantern light. Some paths converge quietly. Some diverge endlessly. Attention changes the flow, but only if paired with understanding. A soft hum rose from the library, pulsing through stone, through air, and through her own heartbeat. Shadows shifted, leaning closer to reveal corners she had not noticed before, corridors that seemed to stretch beyond reason. The library was alive in a new way, aware, responsive, almost sentient. Her thoughts deepened. Could she intervene without disrupting balance? Could observation alone alter outcomes? A shadow stirred near the ceiling, brushing lightly against the arches. She realized with a slow, dawning understanding. The library itself was testing her, extending invitations and challenges simultaneously. Lantern light pooled in unexpected places, illuminating pages that were not yet finished, their words curling and uncurling as if breathing. The keeper sensed threads of multiple stories converging, threads delicate, intertwined, each one fragile in its own right. A ripple in one thread could travel silently, touching countless others. She inhaled deeply, letting the library's pulse fill her. The hum became a rhythm she could follow, guiding her through corridors, along aisles, towards stories that demanded patience, awareness, and subtle courage. She realized that some stories were aware of her presence, waiting for her to decide how to engage. The air itself seemed to respond to her thoughts. A gentle draft stirred, carrying the scent of ink and wet stone, of blossoms unseen but faintly present. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the sensations flow, allowing herself to merge with the rhythm of the library. Images returned with greater intensity. A child pausing at a threshold, petals bending toward hidden sunlight, footsteps hesitating over cobblestones slick with dew. Each scene vibrated faintly with possibility, fragile, yet profoundly alive. She felt responsibility pressing softly against her chest, heavier than any physical weight, but not unwelcome. Pages shifted beneath her hands, curling, unrolling, forming a subtle dialogue with her attention. She felt the first flicker of unease. What if some stories required more than observation? What if waiting was insufficient? The question lingered, delicate and pressing, without urgency, without demand. A corridor to her left pulsed faintly with golden light, beckoning, stretching farther than her eyes could follow. Lanterns swayed overhead, shadows leaned toward her, and books quivered in response. She felt the library's awareness reach toward her, curious, patient, insistent. Her fingertips hovered over a page where the ink shimmered faintly, forming words not yet fully written. Intervention carries weight. Every ripple alters unseen shores. Even patience is a choice. The keeper exhaled slowly, allowing the words to settle in her mind. She understood the delicate balance of attention and action, of presence and consequence. Observation was no longer neutral. It had become a thread in the vast tapestry of possibility. Lanterns flickered in response to her slow movements. Shadows stretched and bent, forming subtle corridors that she had not noticed before. Pages whispered, shifting, curling, alive with potential. The hum of the library deepened, resonating through stone and ink, through air and thought, through her very being. A final image unfolded behind her closed eyelids. A garden bathed in unseen sunlight, a lantern swinging in an empty square, a figure pausing at a bridge over silver water. Each moment vibrated with fragile potential, delicate and alive, waiting for her presence, her awareness, perhaps her choice. Rising slowly, she placed her hands lightly over the open page, feeling the library's rhythm pulsing beneath her fingers. Lanterns glimmered, shadows waited, pages breathed, and the keeper understood that the coming moments would demand more than patience, more than observation. She moved forward, each step measured, conscious, aware. The library held its breath, suspended, waiting for her next encounter with the possibilities that stretched endlessly before her. The keeper paused at a bend in the corridor, sensing an unusual shift in the library's rhythm. The air seemed heavier, laden with the weight of stories that trembled on the edge of unfolding. Lantern light pooled oddly along the floor, revealing corners she had never noticed, shelves bending subtly toward her as if to guide her steps. A book quivered on a pedestal, almost imperceptibly. Its pages flickered, revealing words half-formed, letters shifting as though alive. She approached cautiously, feeling the first gentle pull of tension, not danger, but anticipation. The library had changed in ways she could feel, subtle but undeniable. As she traced the edge of the page, images filled her mind. A square with lanterns swinging in windless air, a garden bending toward hidden sunlight, a figure pausing on a bridge over silver water. They were alive, not merely reflections, but possibilities stretching outward, delicate threads of what could be. The keeper inhaled deeply, letting the vibrations of the library fill her senses. The scent of aged parchment mixed with something new, faintly metallic, like the whisper of rain on distant stone. It tugged at her attention, urging focus, without command, without rush. A sentence formed across the page, shimmering faintly. Paths may shift quietly, unseen. The weight of attention bends them. Some threads wait for courage. Some wait for patience. Some demand choice. Her breath caught slightly. Awareness was no longer enough. She sensed subtle pressure, choices that lingered, waiting for her to notice. The library pulsed beneath her feet, pages fluttering in response to her presence. Even stillness carried consequence. Lanterns overhead cast shifting patterns on the floor, and shadows bent as if alive, subtly rearranging the aisles. She sensed stories brushing against each other, threads of possibility touching lightly, interweaving in delicate synchrony. One small change could ripple through countless tales. Her fingertips hovered above a page that shimmered more brightly than the others. Words formed slowly, curling in response to her attention. Some lives are fragile. Some moments are fleeting. Every gesture leaves an echo. She exhaled slowly, letting the weight settle in her chest. Observation had become participation. Patience was no longer neutral. It shaped reality just as surely as deliberate action. The library, in its quiet, subtle way, was teaching her this truth. A distant hum rose from the deeper halls, gentle but insistent. Shadows shifted to reveal corridors she had never walked before, halls that seemed to stretch farther than reason allowed. The keeper's awareness expanded, following the subtle rhythm of possibility, moving along the currents of stories unfolding silently. She noticed pages fluttering on shelves nearby, half-formed sentences curling toward her. One in particular seemed aware of her gaze. Letters rearranged slowly, shaping themselves as if in dialogue. She felt a twinge of doubt. What if noticing alone had begun to change the tale? Images returned with clarity. A child hesitating at a doorway, petals bending toward hidden sunlight, footsteps paused over cobblestones slick with dew. Each scene resonated with faint energy, fragile and alive, waiting for her recognition, her care, perhaps her intervention. Lantern light shimmered across polished stone. Shadows leaned subtly. Books quivered as if breathing. The keeper felt the weight of responsibility pressing gently, reminding her that presence alone was a choice, and that some threads might soon demand more than attention. She moved slowly, letting her fingers trace the edges of pages without touching the ink. The library responded, shifting gently around her, corridors bending, aisles lengthening. The soft murmur of movement resonated through stone and paper, through air and thought, threading her consciousness into the rhythm of possibility. A faint scent of blossoms rose, mingling with the smell of ink and wet stone, grounding her awareness. The keeper closed her eyes briefly, letting the sensations flow around her, feeling the quiet gravity of potential unfolding beneath her hands. When she opened them, the pedestal before her had shifted slightly, as if the library itself were nudging her forward. She understood that the gentle currents of attention were now entwined with subtle currents of choice. Patience had become a tool, observation a bridge to action. Rising, she moved toward a narrow archway that had appeared overnight. Lanterns glimmered above. Shadows waited. Pages fluttered. The keeper stepped forward, conscious, aware, carrying with her the weight of responsibility and the first whisper of choices that might soon require more than patience alone. A faint ripple passed along the floor, almost as if the library itself had exhaled. The keeper halted, feeling the subtle shift under her feet. She sensed it immediately. Corridors had bent slightly, shelves leaned more closely, and pages whispered faintly in response to her presence. A book lay open on a nearby pedestal, its pages fluttering despite the still air. Images unfolded in her mind. A garden swaying under unseen sunlight, footsteps paused on cobblestones glistening with dew. a lone lantern swinging over a silent square. Every image vibrated with delicate potential, aware of her gaze. The keeper leaned closer, fingertips hovering above the page. The words rearranged slowly, forming sentences she had not read before. Threads converge, paths diverge. Some lives wait for guidance. Some demand awareness. Even hesitation leaves a mark. She exhaled slowly, letting the weight of attention settle in her chest. Observation alone had become participation. Every heartbeat, every breath, was now entwined with the library's rhythm, altering potential subtly, imperceptibly. Lanterns flickered overhead, shadows bent gently along the aisles, and corridors stretched into forms she had not noticed before. She sensed that some stories were nudging against each other, the currents of possibility brushing lightly, testing her understanding. Images returned, a child lingering at a threshold, petals bending toward hidden sunlight, rooftops glistening with dew. Each scene was alive, delicate, suspended, yet increasingly sensitive to her presence. She realized the library was responding not only to her attention, but to the subtle intentions behind it. A gentle vibration ran through the floor. She felt it in her chest, a quiet echo of what was to come. Some threads were bending more than before, reacting to her presence with faint insistence. The keeper understood that subtle choice had begun to ripple outward. She traced a fingertip along a page where the ink shimmered faintly, forming letters that responded to her thoughts. Awareness is no longer neutral. Even patience may shape the unseen. Listen carefully. Move gently. Some stories awaken to your presence. The keeper closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the library's pulse deepen, resonating through stone, ink, and air. Each heartbeat of possibility intertwined with her own, creating a rhythm she could follow, delicate yet compelling. A corridor ahead glimmered faintly in golden light. Shadows arched toward her as if to reveal the path. Books quivered softly on their shelves, half-formed sentences curling and uncurling. Something had shifted, slightly, carefully, but unmistakably. The library itself had begun to move in response to her, and she felt the first whisper of responsibility for the changes taking place. Images arose vividly, a figure pausing on a bridge over silver water, petals turning slowly toward hidden sunlight, footsteps suspended over a narrow stone path. Each image carried weight, fragile but significant. She sensed that even the smallest intervention, the slightest touch of attention, could ripple across multiple stories. Her mind reflected on the keeper's oath, to observe, to respect, to intervene only when necessary. Yet the library's subtle pulse suggested that observation alone might no longer be enough. Some threads required more than presence. They needed choice, gentle and deliberate, but undeniable. Lanterns swayed lightly, casting patterns that shifted across the aisles. Pages whispered faintly, words shimmering in response to her gaze. The keeper's breath slowed, matching the rhythm of the library's heartbeat. Awareness was no longer passive. It had become an active force, gentle yet capable of shaping the unfolding stories. A faint scent of blossoms mingled with the ink and stone, grounding her senses as she moved toward a narrow archway that had appeared overnight. The pedestal before her shifted slightly, as if nudging her forward, guiding her toward threads that might soon require careful choice. She reached the archway and paused, feeling the subtle tension of stories intersecting, possibilities brushing against each other in ways that demanded attention. The keeper understood the first real challenge, the quiet responsibility of presence, the awareness that even a gentle gesture could reshape what had once seemed immutable. Lanterns glimmered, shadows waited, pages fluttered, and she stepped forward, fully conscious, fully aware, carrying with her the weight of choices yet to come, in a library that had begun to awaken in response to her very being. A shadow drifted across the floor, elongated and fluid, unlike any she had seen before. The keeper's eyes followed it, noticing the gentle sway of lantern light over unfamiliar shelves. There was a subtle urgency in the air, though no voice, no movement beyond the shadows themselves. A book lay open on a low pedestal, pages curling lightly, as if breathing. She knelt, feeling the pulse of the library under her hands. Images blossomed in her mind. A bridge arcing over silver water, petals turning toward hidden sunlight, lanterns swinging in empty squares. Each image vibrated with delicate potential, aware of her attention. Words appeared, curling faintly on the page. Some choices awakened threads that were quiet. Some echoes travel further than sight. Awareness now carries weight. The keeper exhaled slowly, letting the library's rhythm wash over her. The familiar sensation of observation had shifted. Now even noticing could nudge possibility, and each heartbeat seemed to ripple subtly through multiple stories. Lanterns swayed overhead. Shadows leaned toward corners she had not seen. Shelves shifted, bending gently inward, suggesting paths and possibilities she could not yet fully comprehend. The library itself seemed aware, waiting for her decision, her recognition, her presence. She traced the edge of a page with a fingertip. Letters rearranged subtly, forming sentences in dialogue with her thoughts. Patience is no longer neutral. Even hesitation shapes. Choose gently, but with awareness. Some threads demanded. Images returned with increasing clarity. A child lingering at a doorway, footsteps paused on cobblestones, rooftops glistening with dew. Each scene was alive, delicate, waiting, fragile yet sensitive to her awareness. She realized that subtle attention now bore consequences. A faint hum resonated from deeper halls, vibrating softly under stone and air. Shadows arched, corridors lengthened in imperceptible ways, and books quivered gently on their shelves. The keeper felt the first pressing sense that some threads were moving without her touch, stirred by unseen forces she could not yet name. Her mind reflected on the keeper's oath: observe, respect, intervene only when necessary. Yet the library's pulse suggested that restraint alone might not suffice. Some stories seemed to wait, anticipating action rather than passive attention. Lantern light flickered along polished stone. Shadows leaned subtly, drawing the keeper's awareness to the delicate intersections of possibility. Pages fluttered, letters shimmering faintly. She realized that even the smallest shift, a glance, a pause, might set in motion changes she could not entirely predict. A corridor to her left glimmered with golden light. The keeper approached cautiously. The library pulsed around her, corridors bending, all stretching. A whisper of movement passed through the shelves, as if stories were brushing against each other, sensing, adjusting, waiting. She opened a book carefully. Its pages revealed overlapping sequences of possibility, faintly glowing threads entwined. One thread trembled more than the others, sensitive, almost aware of her presence. Words shimmered. Some lives bend toward chance. Some moments wait for courage. Intervention carries weight beyond the eye. Even small choice shapes unseen shores. The keeper closed her eyes, feeling the library's heartbeat align with her own. She sensed the first true responsibility pressing upon her. Not a burden, but a gentle insistence. Presence alone was insufficient. Some threads would soon require choice. Lanterns shimmered. Shadows leaned. Pages breathed. The keeper rose slowly, letting her awareness encompass the aisles stretching endlessly. She understood the delicate balance she now held. Every action, even subtle, could ripple across countless stories. Her steps carried her toward a narrow archway, newly revealed, golden light spilling across polished stone. The library pulsed softly underfoot. She moved with intention, careful, aware, carrying with her the weight of responsibility, the subtle tension of choice, and the first whisper of a story that demanded more than observation alone. A hush fell across the library, deeper than any she had felt before. Lanterns glimmered faintly, casting pools of light across corridors that seemed to stretch into infinity. Shadows bent subtly, responding to her presence. The keeper sensed that the threads of possibility were no longer merely shifting, they were waiting. She approached a pedestal where several books lay open. The pages shimmered with overlapping threads of lives, delicate and fragile. Some threads intertwined tightly, others stretched alone across empty spaces. She felt the weight of choice pressing softly, yet insistently, against her chest. A whisper of ink arose from the pages, forming words visible in her mind. Some stories ask for intervention. Some require understanding. To act is to shape. To pause is also to shape. The keeper's fingertips hovered above a page that pulsed with subtle energy. Images formed in her mind. A child stepping through a doorway, petals turning toward hidden sunlight, lanterns swinging above a silent square. Each image quivered, sensitive to her gaze, as if anticipating her next move. The library's pulse deepened, vibrating through stone, through ink, through air, through her own heartbeat. She understood that observation alone would no longer suffice. Some threads now demanded decision, gentle but deliberate. Lanterns swayed overhead. Shadows stretched toward corners she had not noticed. Shelves bent slightly inward, guiding her along paths of potential. Books fluttered softly, their pages alive with awareness. The keeper exhaled slowly, grounding herself in the rhythm of the library. She felt the intertwining of countless lives, delicate threads converging toward moments of choice. The words on the page shimmered faintly again. Courage need not be loud. Compassion need not defy the rules. Yet both may bend reality, softly, subtly. She traced a sequence of pages with her fingers, feeling warmth, pulse, and subtle resistance. The images in her mind shifted, rooftops glistening with dew, footsteps hesitating on cobblestones, a figure pausing on a bridge over silver water. Each movement carried weight, rippling across intertwined threads. A corridor ahead glimmered with golden light. Lanterns flickered as if acknowledging her intent. Shadows leaned toward her, not threatening, but expectant. The keeper felt a gentle tremor of anticipation. Some threads required more than observation. They required courage, empathy, and subtle action. She placed her hands lightly on a page where ink shimmered faintly, forming a sentence that seemed addressed to her alone. Choice is quiet. Choice is gentle. Yet the ripples of a single act may reach far beyond sight. Images flowed through her mind like a slow river. Petals turning, lanterns swinging, a child stepping forward. She sensed the library's breath, its patience, its subtle insistence on awareness paired with intention. Rising, she moved toward a narrow archway newly revealed. The corridors shifted gently underfoot, guiding her, carrying her forward. Every step resonated with the quiet weight of decision. The keeper understood that the moment to act, softly but decisively, had come. The library pulsed, shadows leaned, lanterns glimmered. Pages whispered their gratitude, their hope, their silent encouragement. And she stepped into the next aisle, ready to choose, ready to shape the delicate web of lives entrusted to her awareness. The keeper paused at a crossroads within the library. Corridors stretched in directions she had never seen, shadows folding and bending softly as if to hint which paths carried threads most fragile, most in need of gentle guidance. Lanterns swayed, casting dancing light across polished stone. She approached a pedestal where a single book pulsed faintly. The pages shimmered with threads of possibility, delicate and interwoven. Each thread seemed aware of her attention, responding subtly, curling lightly, waiting for acknowledgement. Words appeared softly. Even the gentlest act shapes futures. Even absence leaves its mark. Balance requires awareness, courage, and compassion. The keeper exhaled, feeling the subtle tension deepen. Threads of possibility stretched and converged, some fragile, some resilient. A single choice could ripple outward, touching countless lives. Yet the weight of potential did not press with urgency. It resonated with quiet insistence. She traced the edges of a page. Images filled her mind. A child stepping through a doorway, petals bending toward hidden sunlight, rooftops glistening with morning dew. The threads vibrated under her gaze, aware, responsive, waiting for her touch or her deliberate choice to leave them unaltered. A faint hum rose from the deeper corridors, a resonance of stories converging, intersecting. The keeper understood that restraint alone would no longer suffice. Some threads demanded gentle intervention, subtle courage, yet still guided by awareness and respect. Lanterns flickered, shadows leaned, shelves shifted slightly inward. Pages whispered faintly, forming words that danced on the edge of comprehension. Compassion may bend rules. Awareness may guide. Action may ripple through infinity. Her mind reflected on the keeper's oath. Observe, respect, intervene only when necessary. Yet necessity now had a quiet voice, urging subtle guidance, balanced by care. Images swirled through her awareness, footsteps pausing, lanterns swinging, petals turning toward unseen sun. Each scene quivered delicately. She felt responsibility not as burden, but as gentle insistence, an invitation to align presence, awareness, and choice. The corridor ahead glimmered in golden light, longer and more inviting than before. The keeper stepped forward slowly, consciously, feeling the library pulse beneath her, sensing the intertwining threads awaiting her deliberate touch. Pages fluttered softly. Shadows leaned. Lanterns glimmered. Threads of possibility converged toward her awareness, fragile, delicate, yet alive. And she realized, fully, that the library itself had become a mirror of her intent. Every act, every pause, every choice echoed softly across countless intertwined stories. Rising from the pedestal, she moved into the next aisle, carrying awareness, empathy, and subtle courage. She understood that the moment to shape the delicate web of lives had arrived, gently, quietly, yet undeniably. A soft light spread through the library, golden and warm, illuminating corners previously hidden. The keeper moved carefully, feeling the subtle tremor of threads beneath her touch, aware that some lives were ready to shift, to step forward, to embrace unseen possibilities. She approached a pedestal where a single open book radiated calm, its pages alive with intertwined threads. The images in her mind shimmered, rooftops glistening with dew, a child stepping confidently into a doorway, lanterns swinging in silent squares. Every image quivered with awareness, awaiting her presence, her careful guidance. Words emerged gently from the page. Some endings are beginnings. Some guidance is quiet. Presence shapes the flow, and choice, though gentle, carries weight. The keeper exhaled, feeling a calm resolve settling over her. Observation and patience had brought her here, but now awareness paired with delicate action would bring resolution. She traced a sequence of pages slowly, noting how threads responded to her attention, curling slightly, stretching outward, converging where care had been applied. Lanterns overhead swayed, casting patterns of light that danced softly across polished stone. Shadows leaned toward her as if acknowledging her intent. The library breathed around her, alive, patient, and subtly expectant. She understood fully. Even a gentle act of intervention could ripple widely, but guided by empathy and awareness, it could preserve harmony rather than disturb it. Images in her mind formed cohesive patterns, a path across a silver bridge, petals turning toward hidden sunlight, footsteps finding sure footing over cobblestones. The words shimmered faintly again. Compassion may guide. Awareness may bend threads. Action, gentle and thoughtful, shapes the tapestry without undoing its beauty. The keeper moved slowly, deliberately, placing her hands lightly over the pages, letting energy flow subtly from her awareness. Threads shifted gently, finding new paths that respected the integrity of the stories while allowing subtle growth, soft change, and quiet joy. A corridor ahead glimmered with warmth, lanterns dancing overhead. Shadows leaned, shelves shifted slightly, guiding her steps. Pages whispered, forming a gentle chorus of gratitude and recognition. The keeper stepped forward, each footfall resonating with quiet intention. She felt the library's pulse entwined with her own, a harmonious rhythm of lives, possibilities, and delicate balance. Threads that once trembled independently now aligned softly, creating a flowing pattern of interconnectedness, care, and subtle resolution. Rising from the pedestal, she walked through the aisle, fully aware, fully present, every act gentle, deliberate, and mindful. The library sighed softly, content, alive, and at peace. And in that calm, she understood that even the smallest presence, guided by awareness and empathy, could bring lasting harmony to the delicate web of possibilities she had been entrusted to protect. The keeper paused at the central hall of the library, where corridors met in a luminous convergence. Lanterns swayed with a gentle rhythm, casting pools of light across the polished stone. Shadows folded gracefully into arches, creating a delicate interplay of movement and stillness. Every flicker seemed intentional, every ripple of light a whisper of possibility. She knelt at the heart pedestal, where a single book rested, its pages alive with threads of countless intertwined lives. Each thread shimmered, subtle yet aware, stretching across the pages in gentle arcs, bending and curling like tendrils of morning mist. Images filled her mind in quiet succession, rooftops glistening with dew, petals turning slowly toward hidden sunlight, a child stepping confidently through a doorway, lanterns swinging above silent squares. Each image pulsed with faint energy, as if acknowledging her presence and seeking her awareness. Words formed on the page, curling softly. Balance is woven through gentle intention. Every choice, observed with care, bends threads without breaking. Presence guides, empathy shapes, and quiet courage completes the weave. The keeper exhaled, feeling the library's pulse resonate through her own chest. Threads responded subtly to her breath, shifting, aligning, curling toward each other, creating quiet patterns of harmony. She traced the edges of the page, letting her fingertips hover above the ink, careful not to disturb more than necessary. Lanterns overhead swayed gently, casting shifting patterns of light that danced across the stone floor. Shadows leaned slightly, acknowledging her intent. Shelves bent inward softly, guiding her steps along the paths of delicate possibility. Pages whispered, letters curling and uncurling as though breathing, alive and attentive. She rose slowly and walked along the aisle, every step measured, intentional. The library seemed to follow her rhythm. Corridors lengthened subtly, lanterns shimmered more warmly, shadows shifted with graceful fluidity. Threads of lives intertwined in intricate patterns, responding to her awareness with quiet gratitude. The keeper paused before a section of shelves that seemed to hum softly, as though resonating with her presence. She reached out, letting her awareness brush the surface of the books. Words shimmered faintly. Even subtle intervention carries weight. Awareness may guide without force. Compassion may bend, but never break. Each thread holds its own truth, delicate yet resilient. Images unfolded in her mind. Petals stretching toward sunlight filtered through high windows. Rooftops glistening with morning dew. A child taking a hesitant but confident first step. Footsteps pausing briefly on cobblestones glistening with rain. Each image quivered, delicate and alive, sensitive to her presence. yet holding its own story. The keeper exhaled again, slower this time, letting the calm spread through her chest. She realized that restraint and action were intertwined. Even inaction carried subtle influence. Awareness itself had become a form of shaping, quiet and deliberate. Lanterns flickered. Shadows arched toward her. Pages trembled softly. The library's pulse intensified, resonating through stone, air, ink, and thought. Threads of possibility converged, entwined, and shifted in patterns of gentle elegance. Each delicate movement reflected her care, her empathy, her subtle courage. She knelt once more at the central pedestal, fingertips hovering over the pages. The words shimmered, curling like ribbons in the air. Compassion and awareness are twin guides. Gentle action aligns what was fragile. Presence completes what observation alone cannot. The keeper exhaled deeply, feeling the quiet insistence of responsibility transform into harmonious purpose. Threads that had trembled independently now intertwined into a flowing pattern of interconnected lives. No thread was forced. Each moved willingly under the guidance of mindful attention. Lanterns swayed overhead, casting soft reflections on polished stone. Shadows folded in gentle acknowledgement. Books quivered lightly on the shelves, as if sighing with satisfaction. The keeper's movements became a slow dance, each gesture deliberate, each breath attuned to the rhythm of the library. Images formed vividly in her mind. A bridge stretching across silver water, petals unfurling toward sunlight, footsteps finding sure footing across wet cobblestones, lanterns swinging gently above empty squares. Each moment resonated with quiet joy, delicate and harmonious. She walked along the aisles, her awareness fully present, her actions gentle and deliberate. The library responded to each subtle touch of attention, each quiet choice, aligning threads, weaving harmony, and settling into soft equilibrium. Words shimmered faintly on the page, a final reflection of the library's acknowledgement. Balance is achieved not through haste, but through care. Presence nurtures. Awareness guides. Gentle courage shapes without disruption. Even the smallest act, performed with mindfulness, carries the light of possibility. The keeper rose fully, letting her awareness flow over the library like a slow, steady current. Threads aligned, shadows receded, lanterns glimmered softly. The pulse of the library synchronized with her own heartbeat, a harmonious rhythm of stories, choice, and quiet resolution. She walked toward the final archway, corridors stretching into gentle light. Pages whispered, threads quivered, shadows leaned in soft acknowledgement. The keeper exhaled, a quiet smile touching her lips. Presence, empathy, subtle action, and mindful courage had guided the library to gentle completion. Every life, every moment, every fragile thread had found its place. Harmony resided in delicate alignment. The library breathed softly, alive and content, and the keeper understood. Even the smallest, mindful presence could nurture balance, and every choice carried the quiet potential for lasting peace. She stepped into the luminous hall beyond, feeling the serene pulse of the library, the satisfaction of lives guided with care, and the calm assurance that even in complexity, gentle attention could bring perfect harmony.